Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County on our new road connection out of Lincoln, and in this video we're going to take a break from roads and highways and we're going to focus on detailing the fuel refinery by Tacoma, as well as adding a new industry out in that area. And so what we're going to do is pretty much just continue developing this corner of the map. We currently just have a fuel industry and a construction materials industry. I think what I'd like to do is find a good spot for some farms and then maybe a food processing plant somewhere. So I think we decided before maybe this is a good spot for farms, and then maybe somewhere over here by this road intersection could be a good spot for some food processing plants. I'm not entirely sure where we want that to be just yet. And then also, while we sort of think about those things, we'll be detailing this fuel refinery, giving this a little bit of character so that it can start to fit in with all the other industries that we have on this line so far. Alright, so let's get started on this fuel refinery, and hopefully this won't take too long. We're not going to go too crazy with it just yet, but we'll give it some life, and then when we come back, we should be ready to start placing down some farms. Alright, so I think this is going to be our fuel refinery edition. I think it's pretty nice. I really wanted to add a bunch of tanks and especially a lot of these chimneys with smoke, as that's what you'd usually see at a fuel refinery. You'd probably see a lot of these chimneys, as well as a ton of large tank storage for all the liquids. So I think this fits in quite well. We have sort of this natural opening in the base industry, so that opens up into here. And then I guess we also have this opening over here, which we could expand out farther on in the future if we wanted to. But for now, I think this is pretty good, and we can start to take a look at where we want the locations of our farms. And so I really think that this valley here would be a really good spot for a bunch of farms. I think this is one of the few cases where it seems like naturally this would occur, as we have mountains on both sides. All the water runoff would run off right into the bottom of this valley here, and presumably that would make a lot of this land quite fertile for crops. So I think that's what we're going to do. We do have to clean things up a bit. We'll probably have to smooth out a good portion of the terrain. We'll have to think about how we want this road to come in here, as I'm not too sure how we want the road to make its impact in here. Maybe we can have a small connecting road up the hill and onto this oil line, and then maybe it extends further and connects out here. I'm not too sure, but that's certainly things we're going to have to explore here. So I think let's start by cleaning this area up. We'll get rid of this coal mine, and then we'll also get rid of some of these roads, so we have a bit more of a fresh start with our roads here. And I imagine we'll probably have to straighten out this whole portion of the road once we figure out where our food processing plant is going to be. And so we'll pull this back all the way to about here, I'd say. And then I think we want to clean up some of these ponds that we have. We're not going to get rid of all of them, because I do think it's a neat feature to have and work around. But this small one doesn't necessarily need to be here. That can go. We have over here, I think this small one can go as well. So we'll keep the two larger ponds that were over here, and those we can work around with our farms. That's not too terrible. But I think this leaves us with a pretty decent base to start out with. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to get our road coming through here. We'll make all the connections that we need to make, and then we'll also smooth out and prepare the terrain for placing the farms. Alright, and so we have our road coming through here. I was going to try to keep it to one side, but I don't think it's too bad to have it sort of coming down the middle here. I think that presents us with opportunities to have industries on both sides, and maybe they each have their own challenges to deal with. And so I think that'll be fun to play out farther in the future. But let's get our last few roads in here. For instance, we want this road to come up, and we'll work it up the hill so we can connect it to our oil wells out there. And we'll want to be careful about doing this, because we don't want any bridges, but we also want to continue climbing up. We'll do that. Keep bringing this around. This will sort of snake up the hill. So there. Now here's where it's going to get tricky, because we don't want to go full max slope up the hill. But I suppose it is going to have to be quite steep in some areas just to make the climb. And now I think it might be easier to work off of this road and figure our way out down from here. So we'll drag this around and we'll try to follow this. And at this point we can start to slowly bring it down. We're not going to cut too much into the terrain. I guess we're kind of forced to anyway. And then at this point we should just be able to drag them over and connect them up. We don't end up with too steep of a slope, so I think we'll be pretty good there. Then we just have to smooth out the terrain, make it look good. Alright, now that we have our road connected here, now we can start to really think about where we want some farms in this area. So here we have our farm industry, and I think what we're going to want to do is we'll set these back from the road just a tiny bit. So I think we'll have a farm right about here. We'll have another one on the other side of the street. This one will go a little bit farther back, but I think this could fit pretty well right back here. And I think we'll get one pretty much right at the corner of these two streets, and we'll want to lower this so that it's about level with the road. So right about there. And then I want to get one more placed somewhere. I'm not too sure where that would be. I think we could probably get one somewhere in here, or maybe we just stick with 3 farms for now. Which, I think let's stick to 3 farms. So, we'll get these blended in with the terrain, delete their roads. Alright, so now I think let's get into placing down our fields. I don't think we'll end up making these farms functional in this video just because we still have to plan the logistics of where the food processing plant's going to go, where the food's going to go after we produce it. So this is just going to be purely cosmetic for the moment, but it will be preparing us for some expansion in the future. Alright, and so here we are with our farms, and I think this is a pretty good start. We have this farm here working its way up the hill. I think we could go back a bit farther, but we're going to leave it at this for now. We have this farm over here that's sort of working with the narrow width between the road and the base of the mountain here. And then we have this one over here, which this one is also working its way up to the base of these mountains. And I think we're going to leave this off here. There's a lot more that I want to do here and fill in, but I think let's get this up and running, or at least ready to be up and running before we get into all the tiny details of this, because we could spend all day lining up our fields along the base of the mountain, but I think we're going to save that for some future endeavors once everything else is set up. But anyway, moving on. So we do have this road here, and I think we are going to have our food processing plant in this area, because what we can do then is we can then by train take food from this station, and then maybe we drop some of it off here directly in Tacoma, and then maybe that train can just continue going forward all the way to the cargo hub. Or maybe we drop it all off here at this station, and then our train that comes from the cargo hub to Tacoma can come in, take it, and take it back out there. We'll worry about the logistics of that later, but I do think doing this by train is not a bad idea. And so I believe this road was built pretty straight, so if we just build out a flat portion along some part of this road, hopefully it's flat in some area, but we'll smooth this out, and we should have a flatter area here. We can come in, find our food processing plant, and then we can go ahead and get this placed right about here. We will fix the road, so this will just come straight out, and then we'll upgrade this road right here that leads up to it. And so I don't believe there's much more that we're going to do with this food processing plant at the moment. I do want to get a bit more of a straightforward road here, and so we'll bring this around. We'll pull it a little bit tighter to where this cliff is, and then we can just connect it back up to this end of the road right about here. We can go back, find our dirt road. That can connect up right about there, and this can connect somewhere in here, probably right there works. And so let's again smooth out along the road so we get rid of those sharp edges from cutting through the terrain. And then we'll also come through with this and upgrade this road all the way back to here, where then they can get to the food processing plant. And so now we'll have these three farms having grain brought in by truck to the food processing plant. And then from this food processing plant, it will come to this station, where then it will get sent by train to Tacoma. And so I want to leave this area off, and we're just going to let that sit for now while we just go around and take a look at some of our lines around the map. We haven't checked in a while, but we should definitely make sure that all of our trains are earning us money, all of our routes are earning us money, or at least not losing us a ton of money. So we'll go through and do that. We'll also maybe clean up some things that we come across, such as this little segment of road that doesn't need to be here. And then we can also come to a city like Pittsburgh and really take a look at how it's grown into this area that we've recently expanded. And I don't think it looks too terrible. I do think we want to place collision tiles to get buildings off of this side of the road. But other than that, I think this is looking pretty well. We're not getting any of the tall buildings, which is exactly what we want. We want this to be pretty much all low density on this side of the highway. So I think this also signals that we could probably start expanding Pittsburgh again soon. And so anyway, let's look into our lines here real quick. And we'll sort so we can see which one's doing the worst at the moment. Unfortunately, it looks like our iron line is not doing too well. Now, I didn't think it used to be this bad. We'll have to take a look once this loads here. And it looks like the finances have stayed relatively the same over a decent period of time. And I think, again, this was one of those lines where we're pretty much just waiting for the technology to get better so we can be more efficient with our transport. We might be able to have a little bit of a step up, but I don't think it's worth replacing these trains quite yet, probably until we're well into the diesel era of engines. But then taking a look at some of our other lines, we have this machines boat line, which this is the crazy boat line that we put in a few videos ago that brings, I believe it's machines and goods to Salt Lake City and then brings fuel on the return trip. And I'm not too sure where we're losing our money on this line. I'm not sure if it's the fact that these boats are hardly bringing any fuel back, if we can find one of these. Yeah, these boats are hardly bringing any fuel on the return trip. But they are... they're even not entirely full on the trips into Salt Lake City. So maybe we trim this down a little bit. I forget if we've calculated the rate that we were targeting for this. But I think if we trim this down by maybe 8 boats, gets us down to a rate of just under 1,400. So maybe these boats will start to travel just a little bit more full. I don't want to make any huge changes to this line just because of how long it is. It is going to take a while before we see any adjustments that we've made reflected in the finances on this line. So I don't want to cut too many boats and then realize we cut way too many. So we'll stick with what we have. We'll stick with just cutting those 8 boats and see how that pans out. Then we have a few other lines popping up here, but this train here is actually usually earning us money, so I think this is one we could ignore. Looks like our Pittsburgh train line up to Monroe. I think we planned on this losing us money, at least for a little bit until we can build more demand. So that's sort of planned, I guess I'll say. Then we have this truck line, which is a little alarming to see a truck line losing us this much money. So let's take a deeper look at what this is. It looks like it's never really earned us too much money. We manage the line. So it's this line here that brings machines into Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's only getting about 58 machines. And this line is prepared to bring in over 800. I think our priorities have shifted a lot with machines. So I think temporarily we're going to sell a bunch of these vehicles and then we'll upgrade them so that they're a bit more efficient. But I think we want to put on our list that we really need to focus on machines and goods production here in the next couple of videos. So we'll cut that down by almost half. I mean, we're only delivering about 100, but I really don't want to go too sparse with our trucks. And then what we can do is replace those. We'll replace these with these flatbed trucks. We'll maybe sell just a few more. And then I think we'll stick with that. Hopefully we'll see those numbers get a little bit better as time goes on, but obviously we need to figure out how we're going to get more machines to Pittsburgh, as that's the second most needed resource for this city. Some other lines here that are maybe not earning us the most amount of money. It looks like our planks ship that is delivering planks to the machines factory somehow isn't earning us money, but I think that's because we're not... Yeah, we're only taking a little bit of machines into Allentown. I think this line used to make us a lot of money when it would be a half boat of machines or even close to full. But since we've really split the consumers of machines, we really aren't able to be profitable on a lot of our machines lines. And then that looks like all the lines that we really needed to take note of. The rest are just a few 100,000, a lot of passenger lines in here. These ones I don't want to really bother getting into and optimizing. It's really once we start seeing the minus over 1 million that those start to become a bit of a concern. But thankfully we don't have too many lines of those. And then on the flip side, all of these trains here are making us a ton of money, with our Houston, Salt Lake City, and Portland train earning us the most. Almost well over double our next train line. So this has proven to be quite a success, especially with the new train upgrade. It looks like that's just only continued to increase our profits. And then let's take a look at our airports here. Since it's been a little bit since we've put those in, we should be able to start to see what our somewhat regular routes will look like. So it looks like we've settled into a bit of a sporadic amount of travel, but it does look like generally we are earning money. I'm sure if we select any train here, it looks like they're all probably about half full. And so that's pretty exciting to see. However, let's check. So we are starting to see a few people coming from Salt Lake City. I was a little worried before we weren't seeing anyone from Salt Lake City coming in by bus to the airport, but we're now starting to see just a tiny amount of people coming in that way. So hopefully we'll start to see that slowly rise. From Houston, we only see about 15 people, but I think that's a decent amount of people, considering we're sort of pulling them away from the city and then sending them back over Houston. And then we have this area of Houston, which I think continues to look okay. I think things are running pretty smoothly here. I think our buses are handling it pretty well. If we look at our destinations, we do have a fair amount of people coming in and out of here. All of our roads are getting used. So these are all good things to see. And I think even our bus is getting a fair amount of use too between Houston and Salt Lake City. So I think we're starting to see some big wins all around the map on some of our recent changes. And so while we're here in Houston, I think what I want to do is begin prepping this area of land for what our next project is going to be for this touristy area. And I think this is going to be sort of a small shopping center. Not quite as big as the one we have in Salt Lake City here. I don't think we're gonna find some huge superstore like this. I think we'll go for maybe like something like these two buildings, just some small shops and a little bit of parking, and I think that'll fit nicely in this plot of land right next to the stadium. So these can go here, and then farther in the future maybe we can line this with a few hotels if we can get them to fit. Or actually, I think let's maybe start with that. I think I'd like to maybe get those in, as that will probably be a little bit more of an easier project and probably a lot less invasive or intensive as this would be. And so I don't think we'll actually be able to fit anything here. Maybe this just ends up being a park, which could be quite nice given it's next to the stadium and to what will be very busy roads once things get fully built out. But I think this area is a decent amount of space for some hotels and other things. So yeah, let's plan this out. We'll get a few buildings placed. And because they are buildings, they won't require too much detailing. So we'll be able to fit this right in here at the end of the video without taking up too much of our time. Alright, so here's what our riverfront area looks like. I'm not sure if I really like it. I think these two buildings are fine. I think this is fine. I think it's this building that I'm really not sold on. I think there's definitely maybe a better orientation for this or something else, but I think at least this is a start, and we'll start to slowly put the pieces together. I think if we don't start a project, we'll never finish it, so at least we have this area started. It's sort of in the back of our mind now on our to-do list, but I do think this does have potential. I think there are a few things that are working, a few things that aren't, and I think giving us some time to sort of sit on it and see the vision will really help us out when we come back to this in a couple of videos from now. However, I do think now is a good time to take a closer look at what we've done in this video, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, and so now that we're back, I do want to take a moment to take a look at some next steps and future projects. So, we obviously know our next steps here are building up this food processing plant a little bit and then setting up all of the lines. I think we have enough to get started, especially since Tacoma and Lincoln don't demand an insane amount of food. I think we could just get this sort of going with a small line, and that'll serve the region just fine. So we obviously know that's coming up probably in the next video. There is room for expansion, and so that is something that we will get to in the future. I think maybe if we get around to connecting to the cargo hub, we might add a few more farms, extend some of the fields into these more emptier regions down here and in this area. So there's a lot more to come out of these farms. I think this has a lot of potential to look pretty cool. I think it'd be really neat to sort of just look down this valley and just see pretty much all farmland as far as you can see. So that's some exciting things for the future to look forward to. And then we also have this end of the highway that we put in closer to the end of last video, I believe. And I think we just want to continue expanding this. I think this is going to be one that we sort of take in small chunks and sort of see where it takes us. I don't think, because we don't necessarily have a well-defined plan for it just yet, that there's really much we can build right now with it, but I think this would be a pretty neat and unique highway in the sense that this could really just sort of take us through the map in whatever way feels most natural, and if it gets used, it gets used. If not, I'm sure we could find ways to have it be at least somewhat useful. Especially with all this steel industry stuff going on in this area, there's certainly some reason we could connect something to this highway. And then of course coming down into Houston, we have this area that we want to continue to think about and slowly build out as we find some good assets. So that's certainly something going on. This whole region of Houston, I think, is something that can really start to come together at some point. Maybe this becomes a bridge and we get a little connecting road here. I'm not too sure. There's a million different things we could do in this area, but I think this is certainly going to be a shopping center. I think this will do well as a small park, and then this will be our hotel, casino, tourist area. Obviously in the future the waterfront will get some of that treatment as well, but we're just not at that point quite yet. Alright, and so I think with that, that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.